The message reached Tony 3 days later while he worked in the commandeered maintenance bay on Coruscant's industrial level. 2,447 sparks cascaded from his armor's left repulsor array as Jarvis ran diagnostics through the HUD. Sir, you're receiving an encrypted transmission through diplomatic channels, his AI announced. Origin point, Separatist-controlled space. The encryption is remarkably sophisticated, almost as if they knew our protocols. Tony paused mid-weld, his arc reactor casting electric blue light across grease-stained durasteel. That's because someone taught them our protocols. Patch it through, but keep the trace running. The hologram that materialized wasn't what he expected. No droid general or corporate stooge. This was a human, tall and dignified, with silver hair and a beard that belonged in a period drama. The man's eyes held the kind of intelligence Tony recognized. Dangerous, calculating, and absolutely certain of its own righteousness. Mr. Stark, I am Count Dooku of Sereno. I believe we have much to discuss. Let me guess, Tony replied, not bothering to remove his helmet. You want my tech? You want me to build you something that goes boom? Or you want me to switch sides? Save us both time and tell me which one. Dooku's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps. I want none of those things. I want to offer you perspective. You've been in this galaxy for less than a month, yet you've already identified the Republic's greatest hypocrisy. An army of slaves fighting a war, orchestrated by politicians, who risk nothing themselves. Tony's jaw tightened inside the helmet. That particular wound was still fresh. He'd witnessed the clones, identical faces, identical voices, identical conditioning to die without question. When he'd called it slavery, Master Windu had given him a lecture about duty and necessity that made Tony want to put a repulsor blast through something expensive. I'm listening, Tony said carefully. The Separatist Alliance fights for independence from a corrupt republic that has abandoned the Outer Rim to poverty and exploitation. We use droids, machines, to wage our war. No sentient being is compelled to fight. No child is stolen from their family and raised as a soldier. Dooku's voice carried the ring of absolute conviction. We are not the villains the Jedi have painted us to be. Mr. Stark, we are freedom fighters against an institution that has grown complacent and cruel. Freedom fighters who happen to be led by corporate interests and trade conglomerates, Tony countered. I've done my homework. Dooku, the banking clan, the Techno Union, the Trade Federation, they're not exactly humanitarian organizations. No, Dooku admitted with surprising candor. They are pragmatic. They understand that true change requires resources and resolve. Just as you understand that building a better world sometimes requires working with imperfect allies. He leaned forward slightly. I know about Afghanistan. Mr. Stark, I know you built your armor in a cave to escape weapons dealers who would have used your genius for evil. You understand the necessity of fighting monsters with tools they fear. Jarvis whispered in Tony's ear. Sir, he's researched you extensively. This intelligence should not exist in this galaxy. Tony kept his voice steady. What do you want, Dooku? Meet with me, face to face. Let me show you what the Republic truly is and what the Separatist Alliance offers instead. If you still wish to fight beside the Jedi afterward, I will respect your decision. Dooku's smile was slight but genuine. But I suspect a mind as keen as yours will recognize the truth when you see it. The hologram provided coordinates, a neutral station in the Seswena sector. 3 days from now, when the transmission ended, Tony stood alone in the flickering light of his arc reactor. Jarvis broke the silence first. It's obviously a trap, sir. Obviously. Tony pulled off his helmet, running a hand through sweat-dampened hair. But he's not wrong about the clones. And if there's even a chance the Separatists are the lesser evil. Here, he trailed off, staring at the Republic propaganda posters plastered across the bay's far wall. Smiling clone troopers. Heroic Jedi. Unity and peace through strength. It looked a lot like the weapons dealer brochures Stark Industries used to print. Jarvis, prep the Mark 42 for deep space travel. And send a message to Anakin. Tell him I'm taking a personal day. He'll want to know where you're going, sir. Then tell him I'm going to hear the other side of the story. If this galaxy's taught me anything, it's that nobody has a monopoly on truth. Tony's eyes hardened. Not even the good guys. If you want to see more characters, enter the Star Wars galaxy. Hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The neutral station hung in the void like a forgotten monument to better days. Its lights dim, its docking bay scarred by years of use and neglect. Tony's armor cut through the silence of space. Repulsors adjusting for the station's weak artificial gravity as he approached. Somewhere behind him, 3 Republic cruisers waited on standby. Anakin had insisted. Despite Tony's protests, Count Dooku waited in the station's observation deck, alone except for 2 IG-100 Magna Guards standing silent sentinel. The Sith Lord, though? Tony didn't know that title yet, stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the stars. You came, Dooku said without turning. I confess, I had doubts. I came for answers, Tony replied. Repulsors keeping him hovering a safe distance from the floor. And because I've learned that the people who tell you not to listen to the other side are usually the ones with something to hide. Dooku turned, and for the first time, Tony saw something unexpected in those ancient eyes, genuine weariness. Then let us speak plainly, Mr. Stark, and let the truth, whatever it may be, guide your choice. The observation deck's transparisteel viewport framed a dying star system, 3 planets, reduced to asteroid fields. Their orbital debris catching distant starlight like fragments of broken glass. Dooku gestured toward the devastation, with a sweeping motion that carried theatrical weight. The Theron system, he said quietly. Republic Navy destroyed it 6 months ago. 15 billion sentients. Men, women, children. Their crime? The planetary government voted to secede and join the Separatist Alliance. Tony's HUD ran analysis on the debris field. Jarvis's voice was tight. Sir, the energy signatures are consistent with sustained orbital bombardment. Multiple capital ships. The attack would have taken days. The Jedi called it a necessary sacrifice, Dooku continued. Master Windu himself signed the authorization. They told the Senate it was a separatist weapons facility. They told their clone soldiers they were preventing a genocide. He turned to face Tony, and there was something raw in his expression. They told everyone except the truth. And what's your truth? Tony kept his repulsors active, maintaining distance. Because where I come from, the people who start conversations with mass graves usually aren't the heroes of the story. My truth. Dooku's laugh was bitter. I was a Jedi Master for 70 years. Mr. Stark, I trained under Yoda himself. I believed in the Order with every fiber of my being, until I witnessed what they had become. Peacekeepers who wage war. Diplomats who command armies. Guardians who steal children and erase their identities. He moved to a nearby console, calling up holographic records. I left the Order not because I felt a darkness, but because I saw the Republic's corruption and the Jedi's complicity in maintaining it. The holofiles scrolled past Tony's HUD, Senate financial records, Jedi deployment orders, clone production quotas from Kamino. Jarvis highlighted inconsistencies, shell corporations, untraceable funds flowing through channels that shouldn't exist. The war is a lie, Dooku said flatly. Both sides are controlled by interests that profit from eternal conflict. The difference is that I admit what we are. The Jedi wrap themselves in righteousness while children die in the trenches. Tony's hands clenched inside his gauntlets. He'd spent 3 weeks fighting beside the Republic, had watched clone troopers, good men with serial numbers instead of names, die protecting civilians. But he'd also watched Jedi Masters make decisions that would have gotten any Earth general court-martialed. Acceptable losses, collateral damage, strategic necessities. The same words Obadiah Stane had used to justify selling weapons to terrorists. Let's say I believe you, Tony said carefully. Let's say the Republic is as corrupt as you claim. That doesn't make the Separatists the good guys. Banking clan, trade federation, corporate alliance. These aren't humanitarian organizations. Dooku. They're profiteers with their own agendas. Absolutely correct. Dooku's agreement caught Tony off guard. The corporations are opportunistic parasites. They care nothing for freedom or justice, only profit margins and market share. But they are tools, Mr. Stark. Tools I can use to dismantle a system that has enslaved the galaxy for 1,000 generations. And after you've dismantled it, what then? Dooku met his eyes. Then I will deal with the corporations. One tyranny at a time. Before Tony could respond, Jarvis interrupted with sudden urgency. Sir, incoming transmission from Kamino. Emergency frequency. Audio only. Patch it through. Static washed through Tony's helmet speakers. Then a voice. Young, scared. Unmistakably clone trooper. Anyone receiving this. Tapoka. City under attack. Separatist. Fleet. Thousands. Of droids, they're targeting. The genetic labs, if they destroy the cloning facilities. The transmission dissolved into weapons fire and screaming. Tony's arc reactor flared brighter. Kamino. The clone homeworld. Dooku's expression remained carefully neutral. I authorized no such attack. Then who did? Tony spun to face him, repulsors cycling to combat readiness. Your generals? Your corporate friends? Or is this another necessary sacrifice you're about to justify? I do not justify senseless slaughter, Dooku said, his voice hardening. Kamino serves no strategic purpose. The clones are already grown, already deployed. Attacking the facilities achieves nothing except, he stopped, understanding dawning in his eyes, except to force you to choose, to reveal which side commands your loyalty. Tony's mind raced. Kamino was 8 hours away at maximum hyperspace speed. The Republic fleet would need at least 10 hours to mobilize from Coruscant. By the time anyone arrived, the cloning facilities, and everyone in them, would be slag. Unless someone with repulsor-based faster-than-light capability got there first. This is a setup, Tony said flatly. Yes. Dooku made no attempt to deny it. But not by me. Someone wants you committed to the Republic cause. Wants you to witness separatist brutality firsthand. Someone who understands that a man like you, a hero, cannot stand idle while innocents die. Palpatine, the Supreme Chancellor, has proven remarkably adept at engineering crises that justify expanding his emergency powers. Dooku's eyes gleamed with dark knowledge. He is not what he appears, Mr. Stark. And this war is not what you believe. Another transmission burst through, this one Republic military frequency. Admiral Yularen's voice, tight with controlled panic. All Republic forces, Kamino, is under siege. Separatist dreadnought Malevolence leading the assault. All available ships proceed immediately. Stark, if you're receiving this, we need you. The clones need you. Tony's jaw clenched. Dooku watched him with the patience of a chess master who had already predicted every move. You see your dilemma, the Count said softly. Fly to Kamino, and you become the Republic's weapon. A symbol they will parade before the galaxy to legitimize their war. Refuse, and thousands die. Clone troopers who never asked to be born into servitude. Kaminoan. Civilians whose only crime was serving a contract signed before this war began. There's always a third option, Tony growled. Is there? Dooku gestured toward the viewport, toward the vast darkness of space. You are one man, Mr. Stark, in a galaxy of trillions. You can save Kamino. You can even win 100 battles. But you cannot win this war, because the war itself is the point. It will continue until every planet has chosen a side, until every system has bled. Enough to justify the atrocities committed in victory's name. Tony's arc reactor pulsed, energy building in his repulsors. He thought of the clone troopers he'd fought beside, Cody, Rex, Fives, men who laughed and joked, and mourned their brothers. Despite identical faces and identical DNA, men who deserved better than to drown in the oceans of Kamino because two sides of the same corrupt machine were playing games with their lives. Jarvis, calculate jump coordinates for Kamino. Maximum speed. Sir, the Republic fleet. We'll be too late. We won't be. Tony turned back to Dooku one last time. This conversation isn't over. When I'm done saving people from your army, we're going to have a serious discussion about what freedom actually means. Dooku inclined his head. I look forward to it. And Mr. Stark? When you arrive at Kamino, pay attention to which ships are attacking and which weapons they use. You may find the truth more disturbing than any lie I could tell. Tony didn't respond. His repulsors flared white-hot, and he shot from the observation deck like a missile, emergency thrusters pushing the Mark 42 to velocities that would have torn apart any ship, not built by Tony Stark's genius. Behind him, Dooku watched through the viewport, a slight smile on his aristocratic features. And so the pieces move, he murmured. As my master predicted, the stars stretched into hyperspace. Lines as Tony punched through the fabric of space-time, racing toward a battle that would force him to choose Republic, Separatist, or something else entirely. He just hoped there was still time to find that third option. Kamino materialized from hyperspace, like a nightmare painted in gray and white, endless oceans, churning beneath storm clouds. The crystalline spires of Tapoka City burning against the rain. Tony's sensors screamed warnings as his armor decelerated hard enough to shatter bones in anyone without an arc reactor compensating for the G-forces. The Separatist fleet hung in low orbit like vultures circling a corpse. 3 Providence-class destroyers, a dozen frigates, and at the center, a ship that made Tony's tactical systems recalibrate their threat assessments 3 times before believing the readings. The Malevolence, a dreadnought 2 kilometers long, bristling with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Its ion pulse cannons charged with building energy signatures that made Tony's arc reactor flutter in sympathetic resonance. Jarvis, tell me those aren't what I think they are. Ion cannons rated at 500 petawatts, sir. A single sustained pulse would disable every electronic system in a 50-kilometer radius, including my armor. Got it. Tony dove toward Tapoka City, repulsors screaming as vulture droids peeled off from the main fleet to intercept. Note to self, install EMP shielding in the Mark 43, right after I design it. The city's defensive turrets had fallen silent, half-melted slag. The rest simply offline. Aqua droids swarmed through breached hull sections like mechanical piranhas, their blaster fire turning the pristine white corridors into charnel houses. Clone troopers fought back with desperate ferocity, but they were overwhelmed, outgunned, and drowning in enemies that felt no fear and took no prisoners. Tony hit the first wave of vulture droids at Mach 3, repulsors carving through their formation like a hot knife through butter. Micro-missiles streaked from his shoulder. Pods, 12 droids became, expanding clouds of shrapnel before they even registered his presence. All Republic forces, this is Iron Man. I'm here. Where do you need me? Static answered him. Then a voice, young, strained, fighting through pain. Genetic archives, level 7. They're trying to destroy the DNA samples, if they succeed. The transmission cut off in an explosion that Tony felt through his sensors. Jarvis, route to level 7 and calculate structural integrity. I'm about to make my own entrance. Sir, the facility is designed to withstand Kamino's ocean pressure. The hull plating is. Tony didn't wait for the engineering analysis. He angled down toward the city's lower levels, charging repulsors to maximum output. The ocean rose up to meet him, black water under black clouds, whitecaps like teeth in a vast mouth. He hit the surface at terminal velocity. The impact should have killed him, should have crumpled the Mark 42 like aluminum foil and scattered Tony's remains across 3 cubic meters of ocean floor. Instead, his repulsors shaped a cavitation bubble, superheated water flashing to steam as he bored through the depths like a bullet fired into ink. Pressure-mounted, crushing, absolute. The weight of an entire ocean pressing down with geological force. The armor's hull groaned. Warning lights cascaded across his HUD. His arc reactor burned hotter than it ever had, channeling energy that would have powered Manhattan for a week into the single-minded purpose of not dying. In the most embarrassing way possible. 50 meters. 100. 200. The ocean floor rushed. Up, volcanic rock and bioluminescent. Flora clinging to life in the crushing dark. But there, a structure, massive and angular, extending down from Tapoka City like a root system. The genetic archives, built deep beneath the waves where no surface attack could reach. Except the Separatists weren't attacking from the surface. An Octoptera tridroid clung to the archive's exterior wall, its 3 legs anchored in the rock, its laser cannons burning through reinforced durasteel like a welder's torch. Behind it, 6 more droids worked in coordinated silence, cutting their way toward the facility's core. Tony's tactical mind processed the scene in microseconds. They weren't trying to destroy the archives. They were trying to steal them. New plan, he muttered, redirecting his trajectory. Jarvis, override safety limiters on the repulsors. I need everything we've got. Sir, at this depth, a repulsor overload could. I know what it could do. Do it anyway. He rocketed toward the closest Tri-Droid, pulling up at the last possible second to redirect his momentum into a spinning hammer fist that caught the droid's central chassis with the full force of his arc. Reactor amplified strength. The droid's armor buckled, its legs released from the rock face, and it tumbled backward into the abyss, sparking and dying as ocean pressure crushed its internal systems. The other droids turned as one, targeting solutions locking onto Tony's signature. Laser fire erupted through the water, superheated beams that turned seawater to steam on contact, creating temporary air pockets that collapsed with thunderous cavitations. Tony weaved between the shots, his flight path a three-dimensional dance that defied conventional physics. He was faster here than in atmosphere. The repulsors displaced water more efficiently than air, creating thrust vectors that let him turn on a credit and accelerate like a missile. It was like flying in zero-G, except the zero-G was trying to kill him. A Tri-Droid's laser caught his left shoulder, burning through the ablative coating and scorching the composite plating beneath. Alarms shrieked. Tony gritted his teeth and kept moving, firing micromissiles that streaked through the water in trails of bubbles before detonating against droid chassis in magnificent blooms of destructive force. 2 droids down. For remaining. Sir, structural integrity at 60%. Hull breach imminent in sections 3 and 7. I strongly recommend. Not now, Jarvis. Tony dove beneath a coordinated barrage, looping up and around to come at the droids from their blind spot. Except they didn't have blind spots, because they were droids and their sensors covered every possible angle. A laser clipped his right leg. Another burned across his back. The Mark 42 was coming apart, piece by piece, and they were still 200 meters underwater, with more droids closing in from above. He needed something they wouldn't expect, something that violated every tactical protocol in the book. Tony aimed directly at the archive wall, at the exact spot the droids had been cutting, and fired his chest-mounted unibeam at full power. The arc reactors. Energy lanced through the water, in a column of coherent light that could have been mistaken for a newborn star. It struck the weakened wall section and punched through, vaporizing durasteel and creating a breach that water rushed through with the force of 100 fire hoses. The current caught the Tri-Droids, slamming them backward and away from the wall. Tony rode the same current forward, using it to accelerate into the breach even as his armor groaned under the stress. He tumbled through into the archive's interior, a vast chamber filled with tanks, each one containing genetic samples suspended in preservation fluid. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. Somewhere, alarms wailed with mechanical urgency, and standing in the center of the chamber, surrounded by a squad of destroyed clone troopers, was a figure Tony hadn't expected to see. General Grievous. The cyborg general stood over 3 meters tall, his duranium body gleaming wetly in the emergency lighting. 4 arms hung at his sides, each hand holding a lightsaber, trophies taken from Jedi he'd killed. His optical sensors fixed on Tony with predatory intensity. Stark, Grievous rasped, his voice like metal scraping metal. Count Dooku said you would come. He said your hero complex would not allow you to stay away. Tony pulled himself upright, repulsors keeping him hovering despite the damage. Water dripped from his armor in streams. His power reserves had dropped to 40%. The breach behind him was already starting to seal with emergency bulkheads, but more water poured through every second. Let me guess, Tony said, buying time for Jarvis to run combat simulations. This whole thing was a setup to get me alone. Underwater, where my armor's at a disadvantage. Very theatrical. I approve of the commitment. Not to capture you. Grievous' mechanical laugh was a sound of pure menace. To kill you. You are a variable my master cannot predict. An anomaly that threatens his grand design. The lightsabers ignited blue, green, purple, yellow, casting the chamber in kaleidoscopic violence. Your technology will be studied. Your remains will be a warning to those who would interfere with the separatist cause. Tony's targeting systems locked onto Grievous, calculating attack vectors, probability outcomes, survivability estimates. Jarvis's conclusion appeared in his HUD, cold and mathematical. Victory probability, 12%. Well, Tony said, raising his repulsor gauntlets. Those are better odds than I had in Afghanistan. The water around them churned as both combatants moved. Simultaneously, cyborg, general, and armored genius, colliding in the depths of Kamino with enough force to shake the foundations of the facility above. And somewhere far above, Count Dooku watched through a remote transmission, his expression unreadable as two pawns played out their predetermined roles in a game they didn't yet understand. Grievous moved like death-given form, four lightsabers spinning in patterns that turned the water into a maelstrom of superheated steam. Tony barely had time to process the first attack before he was dodging repulsors firing in desperate bursts that sent him careening around the chamber. A blue blade missed his faceplate by centimeters. Tony countered with a repulsor blast that caught Grievous in the chest, driving the cyborg back 3 meters. It should have pulverized organic tissue. Instead, Grievous dug his clawed feet into the metal flooring and laughed. "Your weapons are crude," the general hissed. "Effective against droids, perhaps, but I am no mere droid." He launched forward with speed that defied his massive frame, lightsabers weaving a deadly web. Tony fired micromissiles. Half were batted aside by spinning blades. The rest detonated against Grievous' armored chassis without penetrating. The cyborg's body was a masterwork of Kaleesh and Geonosian engineering, designed to survive weapons far more powerful than anything Tony currently had operational. "Jarvis, I need options." "Sir, the lightsabers are plasma-based, magnetically contained. The chamber's water is creating steam. Interference that's degrading their coherence by approximately 15%. However, a green blade carved through Tony's left arm repulsor, severing the emitter array. Sparks cascaded as the limb went dead. However, Jarvis continued with admirable calm. "General, Grievous combat programming is adapting to your movement patterns. Predictive modeling suggests complete tactical superiority in 47 seconds. Tony rocketed backward, putting distance between himself and the advancing general. His mind raced through possibilities. Grievous was faster, stronger, and had 4 weapons to Tony's remaining functional systems. The water that had protected him from the Tridroids now worked against him. Every movement created drag. Every repulsor burst generated steam that obscured his sensors. But Grievous was a machine, and Tony Stark had made a career out of breaking machines. "Jarvis, scan his chassis. Find the weak points, organics, power conduits, anything that keeps him moving." Data flooded his HUD. Grievous' body was mostly mechanical, but there, in the center of his chest cavity, protected by armored plating, a sack of organic tissue, eyes, brain, heart, the last remnants of whatever Grievous had been before the Separatists transformed him into their perfect killing machine. Tony's targeting system locked on. "Found you." He feinted left, drawing 2 of Grievous' lightsabers into defensive positions, then fired his remaining repulsor at maximum output directly at the general's chest. The blast caught Grievous square in the torso, driving him backward, and, for just a moment, forcing the chest plates to flex inward. Not much, maybe a centimeter, but it was enough to confirm what Tony suspected. The organic parts were vulnerable. Grievous recovered instantly, mechanical legs propelling him forward. In a charge that left gouges in the metal floor. "You cannot win, Stark. I have killed 27 Jedi, Force users with powers beyond your comprehension. What chance does a man in a suit of armor have against?" Tony cut him off by triggering the emergency flood system. Klaxons wailed as massive vents in the ceiling opened, releasing torrents of water from Kamino's ocean directly into the chamber. The deluge hit like a hammer from the heavens. Tons of water per second crashing down with enough force to buckle reinforced flooring. Grievous staggered under the sudden impact. His lightsabers flickered, the magnetic containment fields, struggling to maintain coherence as water pressure spiked beyond normal parameters. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, the general was blinded and off balance. Tony didn't waste them. He fired every remaining micromissile in a single salvo, 24 projectiles that streaked through the cascading water in a coordinated swarm. Grievous combat programming kicked in, lightsabers spinning to intercept. But he couldn't track them all, couldn't see them all through the torrent. 6 missiles detonated against his chest plate. The armor held, but the force drove Grievous to one knee. His optical sensors flared, with what might have been surprise, or the droid equivalent of pain. "You fight without honor," Grievous snarled. "I fight to win." Tony dove through the flood, using the water pressure to accelerate like a torpedo. His remaining repulsor charged, building energy until his arc reactor blazed like a sun in his chest. Grievous raised all 4 lightsabers in a defensive cross pattern, a barrier of plasma that should have been impenetrable. Tony aimed for the floor. His repulsor blast struck the metal plating directly beneath Grievous' feet, superheating it in a microsecond. The sudden thermal expansion combined with the water pressure created a localized explosion that launched the general upward, arms flailing for balance he couldn't find. In that moment, suspended, disoriented, vulnerable, Tony struck. He crashed into Grievous from below, his armored fist driving into the chest cavity with every joule of energy the arc reactor could channel. Metal screamed. The chest plates buckled inward, crushing against the organic sac within. Grievous' roar was mechanical and anguished, a sound that echoed through the flooded chamber like a dying god's last breath. 2 lightsabers fell from nerveless hands, deactivating as they tumbled into the rising water. The general's remaining arms thrashed, trying to bring weapons to bear. But Tony was inside his guard now, too close for the long blades to angle properly. "You should have stayed in your ship," Tony growled, firing his chest uni beam at point blank, ranged directly into the weakened chest armor. The beam punched through. For a terrible moment, Tony saw inside the general's body, wires and circuits, and, at the center, a beating heart encased in protective fluid. Organic tissue kept alive by machines. A person turned into a weapon. Then the heart stopped. Grievous' optical sensors dimmed. His massive body went limp, mechanical systems shutting down in cascading failure. Tony shoved him aside, letting the general's corpse crash into the water that now filled the chamber. "Waist deep." "Sir," Jarvis said quietly, "vital signs negative. General Grievous is terminated." Tony floated in the flooded chamber, his armor sparking and failing around him. The left arm was gone. The back plating had cracked. His power reserves hovered at 11%. Every breath felt like inhaling fire. But he'd won. He'd killed one of the Separatist Alliance's most feared commanders, saved the genetic archives, survived an ambush designed to eliminate him from the board. So why did victory taste like ashes? A hologram flickered to life above the water, a tall figure robed in shadow, features obscured except for burning yellow eyes. The presence radiated power that made Tony's arc reactor stutter in instinctive recognition of something older and darker than technology could measure. "Impressive," the figure said, voice smooth as poisoned honey. General Grievous was a useful tool, but tools can be replaced. "You, however," the yellow eyes fixed on Tony with predatory intensity. "You are something new, something dangerous. Count Dooku was right to bring you to my attention." "Who are you?" Tony demanded, though part of him already knew. "The man behind the curtain. The puppet master pulling strings on both sides of this war. I am many things, Mr. Stark. To the Jedi, I am Chancellor Palpatine, servant of the Republic. To the Separatists, I am Darth Sidious, architect of a new order." The figure's smile was visible even through the hologram's distortion. "To you, I will be the test that determines whether you are worthy of survival in my galaxy." The hologram vanished, but not before. Tony saw something that made his blood run cold. Another fleet dropping out of hyperspace. Not Separatist ships. Republic vessels. Star destroyers and cruisers. All bearing Chancellor Palpatine's personal insignia. "Jarvis, are those Republic forces, sir? They're targeting this facility. Weapons charging." Tony's mind reeled. The Republic was attacking Kamino. Their own cloning facilities? That didn't make sense unless someone wanted to destroy the evidence. Wanted to eliminate any record of what happened here. Who really ordered the attack? Who really died in the crossfire? Wanted to erase Tony Stark's inconvenient questions along with everything else. "Sir, we have incoming transmission. Admiral Yularen." The Admiral's face appeared in Tony's HUD, expression grim. "Stark, get out of there. We have orders from the Chancellor himself. Topoka City has been compromised by Separatist infiltration. We're authorized to use orbital bombardment to prevent genetic samples from falling into enemy hands." There's nothing left to compromise. Tony shouted. I killed Grievous. The droids are destroyed. There are still clone troopers alive in this facility. I have my orders. Yulliran's voice carried the weight of a man who'd made his choice and would live with it. You have 5 minutes to evacuate. After that, we fire. The transmission cut off. Tony stared at Grievous' body floating in the water, at the genetic tanks lining the walls, each one containing the building blocks of human life, at the emergency bulkheads sealing off, corridors where clone troopers, his brothers in arms for 3 weeks, were still fighting to survive. 5 minutes to get out. 5 minutes before the Republic erased its own people to maintain a lie. Jarvis, how many clones are still alive in this facility? Based on biosignatures, approximately 214 soldiers remain operational. Medical staff, technicians, and Kaminoan civilians bring the total to 647 sentient beings. 647 lives. 5 minutes. Tony's arc reactor pulsed weakly. 11% power. Damaged armor. No way to carry everyone. No way to save them all. But he could try. Jarvis, reroute all remaining power to repulsors and broadcast on all Republic frequencies. I don't care who hears it. Sir, that will leave life support at minimal. Do it. The channel opened. Tony's voice, amplified and broadcast across every Republic military frequency in the system, echoed with the fury of a man who'd seen too many governments betray their own people. This is Tony Stark to all Republic forces. If you fire on this facility, you're not destroying separatist infiltration. You're murdering your own soldiers. 647 people are alive down here, and I'm getting them out, with or without your permission. Silence answered him. Then Admiral Yulliran's voice, quiet and laced with resignation. For minutes. Stark, that's all I can give you. Tony shot toward the surface, racing against a clock that had already decided most of these people would die. But Tony Stark had never been good at accepting what was decided for him. Tony burst through Tipoca. Cities flooded lower levels like a comet trailing sparks and desperation. His HUD displayed a three-dimensional map of the facility. Biosignatures blinking red across 17 different sections. 647. Lives scattered across 2 square kilometers of labyrinthine corridors. And 4 minutes to save them. Impossible odds. Tony's favorite kind. Jarvis, I need evacuation routes. Prioritize survivors closest to hangar bays and transport ships. Sir, even at optimal efficiency, we can only reach approximately 30% of the facility's population before. Then we make ourselves extremely efficient. Tony banked hard left, repulsors screaming as he accelerated through a collapsed corridor. Ahead, a squad of clone troopers was pinned down by malfunctioning defense turrets, a systems glitch triggered by the flooding that had turned automated security into indiscriminate killers. Tony didn't slow down. He fired a precision repulsor burst that vaporized the first turret, then crashed through the second with his armored shoulder, momentum carrying him and a ton of shattered machinery into the far wall. Move, he shouted at the stunned troopers. Hangar Bay 7, 2 levels up, Eastern Corridor. You have 3 minutes before this entire facility becomes a crater. The squad leader, his helmet marked with blue designations, stared at Tony, sparking damaged armor. Sir, we have wounded. Then carry them. Tony was already moving. Jarvis highlighting the next cluster of biosignatures. That's an order, soldier. He didn't wait to see if they obeyed. Couldn't afford to. Every second spent talking was a second someone else died. The facility shook as the Republic fleet adjusted firing positions. Through his external sensors, Tony tracked the Star Destroyer's weapons systems. Charging. Turbo lasers that could crack continents. Now aimed at a city of clones bred to die for the Republic. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so horrifying. Level 6, Medical Bay, 43 biosignatures, including 12 critically wounded. Tony blasted through the sealed door. Found clone medics working frantically over soldiers too injured to move. A Kaminoan medical director looked up at his entrance, her large eyes wide with fear. We cannot evacuate the critical patients, she said in accented basic. Their injuries are about to become irrelevant when orbital bombardment turns this place into glass. Tony's tactical mind raced. The wounded couldn't walk. The corridors were too narrow for large-scale evacuation, but the medical bay had viewports, reinforced transparisteel facing. Kamino's endless ocean. An ocean that connected to hangar bays designed for submersible ships. Jarvis, are there any operational submersibles in the lower hangars? One Kaminoan transport, sir. Damaged, but functional. Capacity, 60 personnel. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But it was something. Tony turned to the medics. Get everyone onto hover gurneys. Strip life support to portable units. We're going swimming. Swimming? The Kaminoan director's voice cracked with disbelief. The pressure at this depth will be handled by me. Tony raised his remaining functional arm. Charging the repulsor. You have 90 seconds. Use them. While the medics scrambled, Tony fired at the viewport. The reinforced transparisteel held for 3 shots, then spiderwebbed on the 4th. The 5th shot punched through, and suddenly the ocean was inside. With them, a wall of water. That hit like a physical blow, flooding the medical bay in seconds. Tony's repulsors flared, creating a force bubble that pushed back against the deluge just enough to give the medics time to secure their patients. Go, go, go. They went, pushing hover gurneys through water that rose to their waists, their chests, their necks. Tony expanded his force bubble, using precious power to carve a path through the flood. His arc reactor dipped to 8%. 7, 6. They reached the lower hangar with 40 seconds to spare. The Kaminoan transport sat in its dock like a wounded animal, hull scarred by droid blaster fire, but engines still functional. The medics loaded patients with practiced efficiency born of treating battlefield casualties for 3 years of war. Tony's comm crackled. Admiral Yularen, Stark, we're firing in 30 seconds. Please tell me you're clear. Not even close. Tony counted heads, 60 in the transport, but his HUD still showed hundreds of biosignatures scattered throughout the facility. The clone troopers he directed to Hangar Bay. 7. The technicians, trapped in the genetic archives. The Kaminoans in their living quarters on the upper levels. He couldn't save them all. The math was brutal and absolute. But he could save more than just these 60. Jarvis, calculate maximum speed route through remaining survivor clusters. Prioritize largest groups. Sir, your power reserves are at 5%. Life support is failing. The armor's structural integrity will hold until it doesn't. Calculate the route. The path appeared in his HUD, a winding trail through fire and flood, touching 9 different locations in 2 minutes. Mathematically possible. Practically suicidal. Tony shot from the hangar like a bullet, the Kaminoan transport submerging behind him with its cargo of wounded clones who would never know how close they'd come to being sacrificed for political convenience. Hangar Bay 7, 43 clone troopers and 6 Kaminoan technicians, loading onto a Republic gunship that had crash-landed. During the initial attack, Tony's repulsors superheated the damaged engines, forcing them online through sheer thermal energy. Fly or die, people. The gunship lifted with agonizing slowness, engines sputtering, but it lifted. Genetic archives. Level 3, 21 scientists surrounded by destroyed security droids. Tony cleared a path through rubble with repulsor blasts that left his arms smoking. Emergency stairwell, north side. Move. Living quarters, Tower Epsilon. 74 Kaminoan civilians. Mostly young, the children of scientists who lived and worked in Tipoca City. They stared at Tony with enormous eyes that reflected his arc reactor's dying glow. He pointed toward escape pods embedded in the tower's walls. Those. Now. They scattered like startled birds. The facility shook, not from flooding this time, but from the first ranging shots. Turbo laser fire from the Republic fleet, testing trajectories and calibrating for the killing blow. Tony felt each impact through his armor, felt the city dying around him. 10 seconds, Stark. Yularen's voice was barely audible over static. I'm sorry. Tony reached the last cluster of survivors, a group of clone cadets. Children, really, trapped in a training facility when the attack began. 32 identical faces, all younger than 15, all bred to be soldiers. All about to die because the Republic had decided they were acceptable losses. Come with me if you want to live, Tony said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. They followed without question, because that's what clones were trained to do. Follow orders. Trust authority. Die when told. Tony hated this galaxy more with every passing second. He led them through corridors that groaned and buckled, using his last reserves of power to blast through collapsed sections and sealed bulkheads. The cadets moved in perfect formation, synchronized, efficient, identical. They didn't panic, didn't cry, just marched toward uncertain salvation with the discipline of soldiers. 3 times their age, they reached an evacuation shuttle with 5 seconds to spare. Tony practically threw them aboard, his damaged armor shrieking as hydraulics failed and servos ground to sparks. Jarvis, how many did we save? 412 sentients successfully evacuated, sir. 235 remain in the facility. 235 people Tony couldn't reach, couldn't save, would die because he wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't. The sky above Kamino turned green. Turbo-laser fire from 20 Republic warships converged on Tipoca City simultaneously. The bombardment was surgical, precise, devastating. Entire towers vaporized in columns of superheated plasma. The ocean boiled where the beams struck, sending up plumes of steam that rose like funeral pyres into Kamino's storm-racked sky. Tony watched from his position, clinging to the evacuation shuttle's hull. Watched as the facility he'd fought through, the corridors he'd raced down, the lives he'd fought to save, became slag and memory. Watched as 235 people ceased to exist because their own government deemed them inconvenient. His arc reactor flickered. 2%. 1%. The armor died around him, systems shutting down in cascading failure. Tony tumbled from the shuttle's hull, falling toward Kamino's endless ocean. The water rushed up to meet him, black and cold and final. He didn't even have the energy to scream. Strong hands caught him, clone troopers from the shuttle, leaning out to grab their ally as he fell. They hauled him back aboard with strength born of desperation and gratitude, dragging his inert armor into the shuttle's passenger bay. Through failing consciousness, Tony heard their voices. "We got him. Is he alive? Check the chest piece. That's his power source. Someone get a medic." The shuttle's engines burned hard, racing away from Tipoca City's death throes. Through the viewport, Tony watched the orbital bombardment continue, watched the Republic's warships, methodically erasing evidence of their own atrocity. And somewhere in the void between consciousness and darkness, Tony Stark made a promise to himself: no more acceptable losses, no more calculated sacrifices, no more standing by while governments, Republic or Separatist, treated people as expendable resources in their ideological dick-measuring contest. If this galaxy wanted a war, fine, they'd have one. But from now on, Tony Stark wasn't fighting for the Republic, wasn't fighting for the Separatists, wasn't fighting for Jedi or Sith, or any faction that thought lives were currencies to be spent. He was fighting for the people caught in the middle, the clones, the civilians, the children who deserved better than to be pawns in someone else's game. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was his arc reactor, barely glowing, almost dead, but still burning, still alive, still fighting. Tony woke to the sound of hyperspace engines and the smell of Bacta. His eyes opened slowly, vision swimming into focus on an unfamiliar ceiling, gray Durasteel panels, medical equipment humming softly, and the distinctive blue glow of a Bacta tank visible through a doorway. He wasn't wearing his armor. That realization hit him like a physical blow, instinct screaming danger before rational thought could catch up. His hand moved to his chest, found the arc reactor still there, still glowing, dimmer than usual but functional. Someone had removed the Mark 42 but left him his heart. "You're awake." The voice came from his left, a clone trooper sitting in a chair beside the medical bunk, helmet removed. His face was young, scarred along the jawline, with the regulation haircut and tired eyes that Tony had learned to recognize. "You've been out for 18 hours. Where am I?" Tony's voice came out rough, throat raw from inhaling superheated steam. "Republic Medical Frigate Steadfast. We're en route to." The trooper hesitated. "Actually, we're not en route anywhere specific. Captain Rex commandeered the ship after we evacuated Kamino. Said we needed time to figure things out before reporting back to Coruscant." "Rex?" Tony pushed himself upright despite his body's protests. "The 501ST's captain? Why would he?" "Because we all saw what happened." The trooper's expression hardened. The Republic bombed Topoka City, our home, killed our brothers, and you tried to stop it. He leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. Most of us have known for a long time that we're expendable, but watching the fleet we serve fire on our birthplace while we were still inside. He shook his head. That's different. Tony absorbed this, mind racing through implications. How many made it out? 412, like your AI calculated. Plus another 73 who evacuated on their own before the bombardment. You saved more people than you think, Stark. The trooper stood, retrieving Tony's arc reactor chest piece from a nearby table, the armored housing that protected the reactor itself. Your armor's in the cargo bay. My brothers have been working on it. We're not engineers like you, but we know how to repair battle damage. I need to see it. The medical droid said you need another 6 hours of. Tony was already swinging his legs off the bunk, ignoring the protests of muscles that had been pushed beyond human limits. The droid can file a complaint. Where's my armor? The trooper, his designation was CT 2187, but the name Havoc was stenciled on his shoulder pauldron, led Tony through the frigate's corridors. They passed other clone troopers, dozens of them, all wearing the blue markings of the 501st Legion. Each one nodded to Tony as he passed, some offering quiet words of thanks, others simply meeting his eyes with expressions that spoke louder than words. They knew. They all knew what he'd done at Kamino, and more importantly, what the Republic had done. The cargo bay had been converted into an impromptu workshop. The Mark 42 lay disassembled across 3 work tables, clone engineers carefully welding damaged plating and rewiring severed connections. They worked with surprising skill, using Republic military equipment to repair technology that shouldn't exist in this galaxy. Captain Rex stood at the center table, examining Tony's damaged repulsor array with the critical eye of someone who understood weapons systems. He looked up at Tony's entrance, his distinctive blonde hair and jag-eyes markings making him instantly recognizable. Stark. Good. You're up. We need to talk. About how the Republic tried to kill its own soldiers? Among other things. Rex gestured to the other clones, who took the hint and filed out, leaving Tony and Rex alone with the scattered pieces of the Mark 42. I've been a soldier my entire life. 4 years of active combat, hundreds of battles, more brothers dead than I can count. I've made peace with dying for the Republic. His jaw tightened. But dying because the Republic decided we're inconvenient? That's different. Tony approached his armor, running his hand over the damaged chest plate. The metal was scorched, pitted, showing stress fractures that spoke to how close he'd come to catastrophic failure. How much do you know about what happened? The real story, not the official version. Enough. Rex pulled out a datapad, displaying intercepted communications. Admiral Yularen received orders directly from Chancellor Palpatine. The attack on Kamino was labeled as security compromise that required immediate sterilization. Those are the exact words used. Sterilization. He spat the word like poison. We're not people to them. We're products. And when a product becomes defective or inconvenient, you sterilize it. The Separatists attacked first, Tony said, thinking of Grievous' body floating in the flooded archives. Dooku's forces were trying to steal the genetic samples. Were they? Rex fixed Tony with a look that carried uncomfortable implications. Or was that the excuse needed to justify orbital bombardment? Think about it, Stark. The timing was perfect. Separatist attack draws you in, you fight their forces, and then the Republic arrives. Just in time to erase all evidence of what really happened, including any witnesses who might ask inconvenient questions. Tony's mind raced through the chain of events. Dooku's meeting, carefully timed to coincide with the attack. The distress call that brought Tony to Kamino. Grievous waiting in the archives as if he'd known Tony would come. And finally, the Republic fleet arriving exactly when needed to maximum political effect. It was a trap, Tony said slowly. Not to kill me. To force me into a situation where the Republic would have justification to eliminate loose ends. Rex nodded grimly. You, me, every clone who witnessed what happened. We were all supposed to die down there. And the galaxy would remember it as a tragic separatist victory. Instead, you saved 400 people who now know the truth. 400 witnesses. The Republic can't afford to leave alive. Tony looked at the clones working on his armor in the adjoining bay. They'll come for us. Come for all of you. Let them try. Rex's hand moved to his DC-17 blaster pistols. We fought for the Republic because we were bred to, programmed to, trained to believe we were serving something greater than ourselves. But if the Republic sees us as disposable assets instead of soldiers, his eyes hardened. Then maybe it's time we stopped serving the Republic. The implications hung in the air between them. Mutiny, desertion, treason against the only government these clones had ever known. Tony thought of Steve Rogers, of the Howling Commandos, of soldiers throughout history who'd chosen conscience over orders. What about the other clones? Tony asked. The ones still fighting for the Republic? They don't know what we know. Not yet. Rex pulled up additional data on his pad, fleet movements, communication logs, deployment orders. But the 501st has contacts across the Grand Army. Brothers we trust. If we can get the word out, show them what really happened at Kamino. He trailed off, the possibility hanging unspoken. You're talking about starting a clone rebellion, splitting the Republic's own army against itself. I'm talking about survival. Rex met his eyes. The Republic bred us to die for them. Fine, we accepted that, but we won't die to cover up their crimes. We won't let them erase us because we became inconvenient. He gestured to the cargo bay full of clone troopers. These men followed you through hell at Kamino because you treated them like people, not assets. They're ready to follow you again if you're willing to lead. Tony looked at the scattered pieces of his armor, at the arc reactor glowing in his chest, at the face of a soldier asking him to start a war within a war. In another life, he'd have said no, would have found some way to work within the system, to reform from the inside, to fix broken institutions rather than tear them down. But that was before he'd watched the Republic bomb its own people, before he'd seen what governments did when they stopped pretending lives mattered. More than control. I need to repair my armor first, Tony said finally. And we need information, real intelligence about what Palpatine is planning. Why Dooku wanted me at Kamino. What the endgame is for this whole war. I might be able to help with that. A new voice echoed from the cargo bay entrance. Tony and Rex spun simultaneously, weapons raising, Rex's blasters. Tony's bare hands with repulsor, gauntlets that weren't currently attached to his body. Ahsoka Tano stood in the doorway, her montrals marked with white patterns, her expression torn between loyalty and something that looked like betrayal. The young Togruta Padawan held her lightsabers at her sides, unignited but ready. Ahsoka, Rex breathed. What are you doing here? Following a hunch. She stepped into the bay, eyes moving between Rex and Tony. Master Skywalker has been going crazy trying to find you. The Council thinks you've deserted. They're calling you traitors. And what do you think? Rex's voice was carefully neutral. Ahsoka was quiet for a long moment, her gaze settling on Tony. I think you tried to save people at Kamino, and the Republic tried to kill you for it. I think something is very wrong with this war, and the Council won't listen when I try to tell them. She deactivated her lightsabers, clipping them to her belt in a gesture of trust. I think I need to hear your side of the story before I decide who the real traitors are. Tony exchanged a glance with Rex. The captain nodded slightly. Permission to speak freely. The Republic attacked Kamino to cover up evidence, Tony said bluntly. Evidence that someone is playing both sides of this war. Dooku set me up, but he's not the mastermind. There's someone else, someone with access to Republic and Separatist forces. Someone who can orchestrate attacks and responses with perfect timing. You're talking about a conspiracy at the highest levels of government. I'm talking about treason hiding behind patriotism. Tony gestured to the datapad. Rex still held. And I'm talking about 400 clones who were going to die because they saw too much. The question is, are you going to report us to the Council? Or are you going to help us find out who's really running this war? Ahsoka's hand rested on her lightsaber hilt, not threatening, but thoughtful. Outside the cargo bay, stars streaked past in hyperspace, carrying them away from Kamino, away from the Republic, toward uncertain futures. If I help you, she said slowly, I'm betraying my master. The Order. Everything I've been trained to believe in. Or, Tony countered, you're staying loyal to the principles they're supposed to represent. Justice. Protection. Truth. He met her eyes. I've seen a lot of governments betray their people, Ahsoka. Back in my world, I helped some of them do it. Made weapons, sold technology. Told myself I was serving the greater good. His arc reactor pulsed, bright and unforgiving. I won't make that mistake again. This galaxy is broken, and the people in charge benefit from keeping it that way. Someone needs to fix it, or burn it down trying. The cargo bay fell, silent except for the hum of hyperspace engines, and the quiet breathing of three people, standing at a crossroads. Finally, Ahsoka spoke. Tell me everything, starting with why Count Dooku wanted you at Kamino in the first place. Tony smiled, the first genuine expression since waking up. Pull up a chair, kid. This is going to take a while. And as the steadfast carried them through hyperspace toward an uncertain destination, Tony Stark began to explain how he discovered that the Clone Wars weren't a war at all. They were a ritual, a grand performance orchestrated by someone who wanted the galaxy on its knees, desperate enough to accept any authority that promised order. The question was, could 3 rebels and 400 clone deserters stop him before the final act? The Steadfast drifted in the empty space between star systems, powered down to minimal emissions while Tony explained everything. Ahsoka listened with growing horror as he laid out the evidence. Dooku's calculated manipulation, the perfectly timed separatist attack, Palpatine's orders to destroy Kamino, and the uncomfortable truth that someone was controlling both sides of the were like pieces on a game board. Chancellor Palpatine, Ahsoka said when he finished, her voice tight with disbelief. You're saying the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic is either the architect of this entire conspiracy or someone's puppet. Tony worked on his armor while he talked, replacing damaged circuitry with Republic components that weren't quite right but would function until he found better materials. Dooku called his master Darth Sidious. That name mean anything to you? Ahsoka's face went pale. Darth is a Sith title, but the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years. Clearly not extinct enough. Rex leaned against the wall, arms crossed. We've seen the evidence, Commander. Someone with access to Republic military codes and separatist command structures orchestrated Kamino. That level of access doesn't happen by accident. The Council needs to know. Ahsoka reached for her comlink, but Tony caught her wrist. And tell them what? That we think the Chancellor is a Sith Lord based on a conversation I had with Count Dooku, who, by the way, was trying to recruit me at the time. Tony released her gently. They'll think we're traitors trying to justify desertion. Or worse, they'll investigate and tip off Palpatine that we're onto him. So what do we do? Ahsoka's frustration bled through her Jedi calm. Just run? Hide. Let the war continue while people die. We find proof. Tony pulled up a holographic display from his repaired gauntlet, the data Jarvis had collected during the Kamino assault. Before the Republic bombed Tipoca City, the Separatist droids were trying to steal genetic samples. Not destroy them, steal them. Why would Dooku want clone DNA? To create their own army? Rex suggested. They already have a droid army. Cheaper, more expendable. No moral complications. Tony highlighted sections of the data. No, this was specific. They were extracting samples from the genetic archives. Most secure vault, the section containing experimental template modifications. Template modifications? Ahsoka leaned closer to the hologram. You mean alterations to Jango Fett's DNA? Alterations that the Kaminoans wouldn't put in the standard clones. Things they were testing, improving. Tony's expression darkened. Jarvis found references to something called Protocol 66 in the encrypted files. Ring any bells? Rex and Ahsoka exchanged glances. Never heard of it, Rex said, but something in his voice suggested otherwise, a hesitation, like a word on the tip of his tongue that he couldn't quite grasp. Jarvis, run a deep scan on Rex's armor systems. Look for hidden protocols, embedded commands, anything that might trigger on external signals. Sir, scanning a clone trooper's equipment without permission. Do it. Rex nodded slowly. If there's something in my programming I don't know about, I want to find it. The scan took 90 seconds. When Jarvis displayed the results, the cargo bay fell deathly silent. Biochip detected, Jarvis announced. Organic implant located in the frontal lobe, approximately 5 millimeters in diameter. Function, unknown. However, I am detecting receiver protocols capable of accepting encrypted transmissions on frequencies consistent with Republic military command channels. A chip. Rex's hand moved unconsciously to his temple. In my brain. In every clone's brain. Tony said grimly. Cross-referencing the data with Kaminoan medical files Jarvis had pulled during the evacuation, implanted during embryonic development. The Kaminoans called it an inhibitor chip, supposedly, to prevent aggressive behavior. But these receiver protocols suggest something else entirely. A kill switch, Ahsoka breathed. A way to control the entire clone army with a single transmission, or turn them against their commanders. Tony met Rex's eyes. Protocol 66. What if it's an order embedded in every clone's subconscious? Waiting for activation? An order to kill the Jedi. Rex's voice was hollow. That's what you're saying. That we're all walking time bombs programmed to murder the people we serve beside. The implication hung in the air like a death sentence. 3 million clone troopers, stationed across the galaxy, integrated into every Jedi-led unit. A single transmission could turn the Republic's army into the Jedi Order's executioners. We have to remove them, Ahsoka said urgently. The chips. We have to get them out of every clone before whoever controls the chips decides to activate them. Tony nodded. Problem is, we have 400 clones here and 3 million across the galaxy. We need time, resources, and a surgical team capable of performing neurosurgery on a massive scale. And we need to do it without alerting the Republic or the Separatists that we know about the chips. Rex paced the cargo bay, tactical mind working through impossible logistics. The moment word gets out, whoever's running this operation will activate Protocol 66 immediately. Then we need leverage. Tony pulled up a new hologram, schematics, he'd been working on since waking up. Something that makes us too dangerous to activate the protocol against. Something that changes the equation. The hologram showed his arc reactor technology, but modified, scaled up, weaponized in ways Tony had previously refused to consider. I can build a ship-scale arc reactor. Power output sufficient to level a city or sustain shields that could withstand sustained capital ship bombardment. Give me 2 weeks and access to the right materials, and I can make this frigate effectively invincible. You're talking about building a superweapon, Ahsoka said quietly. I'm talking about building a deterrent. Mutually assured destruction has kept my galaxy relatively peaceful for decades. It can work here too, if we do it right. Or it starts an arms race that makes the Clone Wars look like a border skirmish. Ahsoka shook her head. There has to be another way. There is. A new voice cut through the debate, cold, aristocratic, and utterly unexpected. Count Dooku's hologram flickered to life in the center of the cargo bay, his image projected from a hidden transmitter attached to Tony's armor. The Sith Lord's expression was unreadable as he surveyed the 3 conspirators. How long have you been listening? Tony demanded, hands already reaching for his repulsor gauntlets. Long enough to confirm my suspicions about Protocol 66. Long enough to realize that you've stumbled onto the truth faster than I anticipated. Dooku's eyes fixed on Tony. And long enough to know that we have a common enemy, Mr. Stark. We have nothing in common, don't we? Dooku's smile was thin. You want to stop Darth Sidious from activating his clone army against the Jedi. I want to eliminate my master and claim control of the Separatist Alliance. We both seek the same goal, preventing the Republic's transformation into something far worse. An empire, Tony said, understanding clicking into place. That's the endgame. Palpatine orchestrates a crisis, saves the galaxy from destruction, and the Senate grants him emergency powers that never expire. The Republic becomes an empire, and he becomes its emperor. With an army programmed to obey his every command and a Jedi Order decimated by betrayal from within. Dooku nodded slowly. My master has spent decades engineering this scenario. I thought I could control him, use his vision to serve my own ends. I was wrong. So now you want our help stopping him? Rex's hand rested on his blaster. Why should we trust you? Because unlike my master, I am capable of honesty when circumstances demand it. Dooku's hologram turned to face the clone captain. I ordered the attack on Kamino, Captain Rex. I sent Grievous to engage Stark. But I did not order the genetic archives destroyed, nor did I authorize the Republic's orbital bombardment. That was Sidious's improvisation, an attempt to eliminate variables he could not control. Variables like me, Tony said. You are a disruption to carefully laid plans that have been in motion since before you were born. Your technology, your perspective, your refusal to accept predetermined roles. all of it threatens the grand design. Dooku leaned forward. But perhaps a disruption is precisely what this galaxy needs. What are you proposing? Ahsoka asked, her voice wary. An alliance. Temporary, pragmatic, and limited in scope. Dooku pulled up his own holographic data, separatist fleet movements, hidden research facilities, encrypted communications between Sidious and his various agents. I can provide intelligence on my master's operations. Safe havens where you can remove the control chips from your clone forces. Resources for Stark's technological projects. In exchange, you help me sever Sidious's control over the separatist military. And after we've dealt with Palpatine, Tony challenged. What then? You become the new emperor. I become what I always intended to be, a force for change in a galaxy that has stagnated under Republic corruption. But unlike my master, I have no interest in galactic domination. Let the Republic reform itself. Let the Separatists achieve genuine independence. Let the galaxy find its own path without Sith manipulation. Dooku's expression was almost wistful. I was a Jedi once, Mr. Stark. I still remember what it means to serve something greater than ambition. The cargo bay fell silent as three rebels considered an alliance with the devil they knew to stop the devil they didn't. How do we know this isn't another trap? Rex demanded. You don't. Dooku's honesty was refreshing in its bluntness. But consider this. If I wanted you dead, I could have shared your location with Sidious the moment I placed that tracker on Stark's armor. Instead, I'm offering you the chance to strike first, to remove the control chips before Protocol 66 can be activated, to expose Palpatine before he can consolidate power, to end this war before it transforms into something infinitely worse. Tony looked at his damaged armor, at the clone troopers working to repair it, at Ahsoka's conflicted expression and Rex's calculating eyes. Every instinct screamed that trusting Dooku was suicide. But those same instincts had told him to trust Obadiah Stane, to trust the U.S. military, to trust systems that had betrayed him repeatedly. Maybe it was time to stop trusting anyone and start verifying everything. Jarvis analyzed Dooku's data. Cross-reference with what we pulled from Kamino. Look for inconsistencies, traps, anything that suggests this is another manipulation. Already processing, sir. Initial analysis suggests the data is genuine. Encrypted communications between Chancellor Palpatine and Separatist commanders using codes that should not exist. Show me. The hologram shifted, displaying message logs that made Tony's blood run cold. Orders from Palpatine to Separatist generals. Battle plans coordinated between Republic and Separatist forces to maximize casualties on both sides. Financial transfers from Republic war funds to Separatist accounts and vice versa. The entire war was a fraud. A performance. A carefully orchestrated massacre designed to justify the death of democracy. Son of a bitch, Tony whispered. Now you see, Dooku said quietly. Now you understand what I discovered that forced me to leave the Jedi Order. The Republic isn't fighting the Separatists. We're dancing together to a tune played by a Sith Lord who's convinced the galaxy that tyranny is the price of peace. Tony made his decision. Fine. We work together. But the moment you betray us, the moment I even suspect you're playing games, I will turn every weapon I have against you. Clear. Perfectly. Dooku's smile held genuine respect. I would expect nothing less from the man who killed General Grievous with a damaged suit of armor and 3% power reserves. You are, as my master feared, an unpredictable variable. Good, Tony said. Let's stay that way. The Separatist research facility on Skako Minor wasn't marked on any Republic star charts. It clung to the side of a wind-scoured mesa like a mechanical parasite, its walls camouflaged against the rust-colored rock. According to Dooku's intelligence, this was where the Techno-Union had been developing advanced medical technology, including the surgical equipment necessary to safely remove biochips from clone brains. Tony's repaired armor gleamed in the harsh light of Skako miners, twin suns as the Steadfast descended toward the facility's landing pad. Beside him in the cargo bay, Rex supervised the final equipment checks on 20 clone troopers, volunteers, for the chip removal procedure. If it worked, they'd be free of Sidious's control. If it failed, they'd be dead or brain damaged. High stakes. Tony's favorite kind. The facility commander is expecting us. Dooku's voice crackled through the calm. The Count had remained on his own ship, maintaining the pretense of separatist authority while Tony's group approached under false credentials. He believes you are Republic prisoners being transferred to Techno-Union custody for interrogation. Play your role convincingly. We're good at pretending to be prisoners, Rex said dryly. We've been the Republic's property since birth. The landing pad materialized from the dust storm, a flat expanse of reinforced Duracrete surrounded by automated defense turrets. A squad of battle droids waited at attention, their photoreceptors tracking the frigate's descent with mechanical precision. Remember the plan, Tony said, checking his repulsor charge. Ahsoka plays the captured Jedi. Rex and his men play defeated soldiers. I play the Republic defector bringing valuable assets to the separatist cause. We get inside, secure the medical bay, and hold position until Dooku's team arrives with the rest of our people. And if something goes wrong? Ahsoka asked, her lightsabers concealed beneath a prisoner's tunic. Then we improvise. I'm good at improvising. The frigate touched down with a hydraulic hiss. The boarding ramp lowered, revealing a reception committee of battle droids led by a tactical droid whose photoreceptors gleamed with synthetic intelligence. Identification, the tactical droid demanded in its flat, emotionless voice. Tony transmitted the forged credentials Dooku had provided. Captain Stark, Republic defector. I'm delivering high-value prisoners for Techno-Union processing. 1. Jedi Padawan and 20 clone troopers with tactical intelligence on Republic fleet movements. The tactical droid processed this information with visible calculation. Our records show no scheduled prisoner transfer. That's because Count Dooku arranged this personally. You want to tell him his orders aren't in your database. The threat of Dooku's displeasure worked better than any forged document. The tactical droid stepped aside. Proceed to Medical Bay 7. Wat Tambor will oversee the interrogation personally. Tony's heart sank. Wat Tambor, the foreman of the Techno-Union, one of the Separatist Alliance's most powerful figures. If he was here personally, this operation just became exponentially more complicated. They marched through the facility's corridors under droid escort, playing their roles with practiced precision. The clones walked with the defeated posture of captured soldiers. Ahsoka kept her eyes downcast like a Jedi stripped of her dignity, and Tony projected the confident swagger of a turncoat who'd chosen winning over loyalty. Medical Bay 7 was exactly what Tony needed: surgical theaters equipped with precision laser scalpels, brain imaging equipment, and automated systems, sophisticated enough to operate on organic tissue without human error. It was also crawling with battle droids and monitoring stations that fed data directly to Tambor's command center. The foreman himself waited in the observation deck, his cybernetic pressure suit hissing with regulated atmosphere. His vocabulator distorted his voice into a mechanical rasp that somehow conveyed amusement. A Jedi Padawan and clone soldiers. How delightfully unexpected. Tambor's sensors focused on Ahsoka. The Council must be desperate if they're allowing their younglings to command troops. She's not commanding anyone anymore, Tony said, keeping his voice level. She's a prisoner. Like we agreed. Agreed. Tambor's laugh was a sound like grinding gears. Count Dooku mentioned a Republic defector with valuable intelligence. He said nothing about immediate delivery of prisoners. Tony's tactical systems screamed warnings. Something was wrong. Dooku's intelligence had indicated Tambor would be off-world for another week. His presence here was either terrible timing or it's a trap, Rex breathed through their encrypted comm channel. You're a clever one, clone, Tambor said. And Tony realized with cold dread that the foreman had been monitoring their communications. Did you truly believe Count Dooku would betray his master? That a Sith Lord would choose alliance with Republic deserters over the grand plan? Decades in preparation. The medical bay's doors sealed with mechanical finality. Battle droids poured from hidden wall panels, dozens of them, surrounding Tony's team with overwhelming firepower. Ahsoka's hand moved to her lightsaber, but Tony caught her wrist. Not yet. Wait for the opening. Dooku sends his apologies, Tambor continued. He appreciates your attempt to disrupt Protocol 66. But Darth Sidious anticipated even this contingency. Your execution will serve as proof that those who betray the Republic face swift justice. The Chancellor will be most pleased. Tony's mind raced through options, calculating odds, searching for the angle that would keep them alive long enough to. The facility shook, not from weapons fire or explosions, but from something, landing on the roof with enough force to crack reinforced structure. Through the observation windows, Tony glimpsed a ship he didn't recognize, sleek, unmarked, diving through Skako Miner's dust storms like a predator. The lights cut out. Emergency systems struggled to compensate as something massive tore through the facility's upper levels. Battle droids turned toward the threat, photoreceptors seeking targets in the sudden darkness. Then the medical bay's ceiling exploded inward in a shower of durasteel and sparks. A figure dropped through the breach, lightsaber blazing red in the darkness. But this wasn't Dooku's elegant style or Sidious's controlled malice. This was raw power channeled through rage and technique that made the air itself scream with displaced energy. Anakin Skywalker had arrived, and he was absolutely furious. "Get away from my Padawan," he snarled. Force-enhanced strength hurling 3 battle droids into the walls with bone-crushing impact. "Master!" Ahsoka's relief was palpable as she ignited her own lightsabers, spinning into the defensive forms that complemented Anakin's aggressive assault. Tony didn't waste time questioning their fortune. His repulsors fired, taking out the droids closest to Rex's squad, while the clone captain and his men dropped their prisoner act and opened fire with weapons they'd concealed beneath their uniforms. The medical bay became a war zone, lightsabers deflecting blaster bolts, repulsor beams carving through droid chassis, clone troopers fighting with the desperate precision of men who knew this was their only chance at survival. Wat Tambor retreated toward a secure exit, his mechanical suit surprisingly quick. Tony tracked him with targeting systems, charging his uni-beam, but Anakin got there first. The Jedi Master Force pulled the foreman backward, lightsaber raised for a killing blow. "Wait!" Tony shouted. "We need him alive. He has information about." Anakin hesitated, just for a moment. It was enough for Tambor to activate a personal shield generator, energy barriers crackling to life around his pressure suit. "You are too late," the foreman rasped. "The message has been sent. Darth Sidious knows your location. The Republic fleet is already en route. You have minutes before orbital bombardment begins." His laughter was mechanical and merciless, dying knowing you accomplished nothing. The facility shook again, this time from turbolaser strikes as Republic warships dropped out of hyperspace. Tony's sensors counted 4 Star Destroyers, all bearing Chancellor Palpatine's personal authorization codes. "Jarvis, get the Steadfast airborne. Evacuation protocol now." "Sir, the ship's engines require a 3-minute warm-up sequence. We have less than 2 minutes before the bombardment reaches lethal intensity." Anakin grabbed Ahsoka's arm, his expression torn between relief and betrayal. "What are you doing here? The Council said you deserted, that you were helping traitors." "There's no time to explain." Ahsoka pulled free, forcible overriding years of obedience. "Master, you have to trust me. The Republic isn't what you think. Chancellor Palpatine is waiting for your report, Skywalker," a new voice interrupted. The hologram appeared in the center of the ruined medical bay, Chancellor Palpatine himself, his grandfatherly features twisted with disappointment. Behind him, visible through the hologram's background, was the Supreme Chancellor's office on Coruscant. "I had such hopes for you, Ahsoka," Palpatine said sadly. "A promising student led astray by Republic deserters and terrorists. Return to Coruscant peacefully, and I will ensure the Council shows mercy." "Mercy?" Tony's laugh was harsh. "Like the mercy you showed at Kamino, when you ordered orbital bombardment on your own soldiers." Palpatine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Calculation, recalibration. The look of a chess master whose opponent had made an unexpected move. "I see you've been listening to separatist propaganda, Mr. Stark." Kamino was a tragedy, but necessary to prevent genetic samples from falling into enemy hands. "Surely you understand strategic necessity." "I understand you're a Sith Lord playing both sides of a war for your own benefit." Tony stepped forward, letting his arc reactor's glow illuminate the darkness. "I understand Protocol 66. I understand that every clone trooper in the galaxy has a biochip in their brain that you can activate whenever you want. turning them into Jedi killers with a single transmission. The medical bay fell silent. Anakin's lightsaber wavered, confusion replacing fury on his face. "Is that true?" he asked, looking at Rex. The clone captain's expression was grim. "We found the chips, General. Found the activation protocols. Found evidence that both sides of this war are controlled by the same person." "Fascinating accusations," Palpatine said, his voice still calm, still grandfatherly. "Though I wonder what evidence you have to support such wild conspiracy theories." "Jarvis, transmit everything. All of it. Every file we pulled from Kamino. Every communication we intercepted. Every piece of data Dooku provided. Broadcast it on every Republic military frequency. Every public channel. Every network that will carry it. Sir, that will reveal our entire operation too. Do it. Now." The data burst outward like a supernova. Gigabytes of evidence flooding through the galaxy's communication networks. Financial records. Battle plans. Encrypted conversations between Palpatine and Separatist commanders. Medical files documenting the biochips. Security footage of the Kamino bombardment. Everything. Palpatine's mask slipped, just for a second, but long enough for Tony to see the monster beneath. Yellow eyes. Twisted features. The face of a Sith Lord whose carefully constructed deception was unraveling in real time. "You just declared war on me, Mr. Stark," Sidious said, dropping the Palpatine pretense entirely. "Not the Republic, not the Separatists. Me. And I have been planning this war for longer than your entire civilization has existed." "Good," Tony said, repulsors charging to maximum. "I prefer honest enemies to fake friends." The hologram vanished. Above them, the Republic fleet intensified its bombardment, not trying to capture them anymore, but to erase them completely. "We need to move," Rex shouted over the sound of collapsing structure. Anakin grabbed Ahsoka again, this time protective rather than accusatory. "My ship's on the roof. It can carry all of us if we go." Tony interrupted. "Get your people out. Rex, take your men and evacuate with Skywalker." "What about you?" Tony looked at the surgical equipment around them, the technology that could have freed the clones, the hope that had just died under Sidious's bombardment. "Someone needs to buy you time. Someone needs to make sure that data reaches every corner of the galaxy before Palpatine can bury it." "Stark, go." They went. Because Tony Stark had saved their lives before and they trusted him to do it again. Anakin carried Ahsoka through the breach in the ceiling, Rex and his men following close behind, escaping into Skako Miner's dust storms as the facility collapsed around them. Tony stood alone in the ruined medical bay, surrounded by destroyed droids and burning equipment. His arc reactor pulsed, feeding power to armor that had been pushed beyond its limits too many times. "Jarvis, how long until that data reaches critical saturation across the holonet?" 3 minutes, sir. But the facility will collapse in 90 seconds. "Then let's make those 90 seconds count." Tony launched into the facility's corridors, targeting structural supports, overloading power conduits, using his repulsors to accelerate the collapse. If Sidious wanted to erase the evidence, Tony would erase the evidence himself, but only after burying half a Republic bombardment fleet under Skako, Miners Rock and Steel. The facility came down like a dying star, and somewhere in the chaos, Tony Stark laughed because he'd just done what no one else in this galaxy had managed in 1,000 years. He'd exposed a Sith Lord to the entire galaxy and lived to tell about it. The galaxy exploded with reaction. Tony watched the holonet feeds from the Steadfast Bridge as the data bomb detonated. Across 1,000,000,000,000 screens, Senate chambers erupted in chaos. Republic military commanders demanded answers. Separatist councils suddenly questioned orders they'd received from mysterious sources. And everywhere, from Coruscant's glittering towers to Tatooine's dusty cantinas, people saw the evidence of conspiracy laid bare. Chancellor Palpatine appeared before the Senate within hours, his face grave, his voice trembling with righteous indignation. Tony watched the performance with grudging respect for the sheer audacity of it. "These allegations," Palpatine declared to assembled senators, "are separatist fabrications designed to sow discord within the Republic. Yes, there are financial irregularities. Yes, certain military communications appear suspicious. But this is the fog of war, chaos, confusion, Mistakes made. Under impossible pressure. He spread his hands in a gesture of wounded innocence. I am not a Sith Lord. I am a public servant who has given his life to preserving democracy. He's good, Tony muttered, watching the speech with Jarvis, analyzing micro-expressions and vocal patterns. Knows exactly which lies to admit to make the important ones believable. The Senate is divided, sir, Jarvis reported. 43% believe the Chancellor's explanation. 32% demand investigation. 25% are undecided. Not enough. Tony had hoped the evidence would be overwhelming, that Sidious would be dragged from office in chains. Instead, the Sith Lord had done what politicians always did, survive the truth by wrapping it in plausible deniability. What about the Jedi? Ahsoka asked from across the bridge. She'd been quiet since escaping Skako Minor, processing the betrayal of everything she believed in. The Council has called an emergency session. Jarvis displayed the communication logs. Master Windu is demanding the Chancellor submit to force examination. Master Yoda counsels patience. Master Kenobi suggests waiting for Anakin's report before taking action. Anakin. Ahsoka's voice was tight with worry. He was ordered back to Coruscant immediately. After Skako Minor. The Council wants to know whose side he's on. And whose side is he on? Rex asked the question they were all thinking. I don't know. Ahsoka's admission carried the weight of shattered certainty. He's loyal to the Republic, but he's also my master. He saw the evidence. He knows about the chips. She looked at Tony. What do you think he'll do? Tony thought of Steve Rogers facing the World Security Council, of Natasha Romanoff burning S.H.I.E.L.'s secrets onto the public internet, of heroes who'd chosen truth over orders. I think he'll do what heroes always do when institutions betray their values. He'll try to fix it from the inside. Tony pulled up tactical displays showing Republic fleet movements, which is exactly what Sidious is counting on. The holographic star map lit up with red markers. Republic forces converging on Coruscant from across the galaxy. The Chancellor had called an emergency session, summoning the Jedi Council, military leadership, and key senators to discuss the separatist conspiracy and the traitors who'd spread it. It was a trap. Tony knew it was a trap. The question was whether Anakin would see it before walking in. We have to warn him, Ahsoka said urgently. Already tried. Rex gestured to the communications station. Every channel to Coruscant is being monitored. The moment we transmit, the Republic fleet will triangulate our position. Then we go there ourselves. Ahsoka stood, decision made. If the Council's walking into Palpatine's trap, someone needs to be there too. To what? Tony interrupted. Fight your way through a planet-wide defense network. Storm the Senate building with 400 clone deserters against the entire Coruscant garrison? He shook his head. That's not a rescue mission. That's suicide with extra steps. So we do nothing? We let Palpatine win. We let Palpatine make his move. Tony manipulated the holographic display, showing the trap from a different angle. He's consolidating power, gathering his enemies in one place. That makes him predictable, and predictable enemies make mistakes. A new alert flashed across the displays. Incoming transmission. Heavily encrypted, originating from separatist space. Jarvis ran authentication protocols while Tony's finger hovered over the accept button. It's Count Dooku, sir. Tony expected more lies, more manipulation. What he got was something else entirely, desperation. Dooku's hologram appeared, and the Count looked decades older than the composed aristocrat who'd offered alliance days ago. His robes were scorched, his face bore fresh wounds, and his eyes held the haunted knowledge of a man who'd finally realized he was the puppet, not the puppet master. Stark, you were right about everything. Dooku's voice was hollow. My master played me from the beginning. The alliance, the trap at Skako Minor, even my offer of intelligence, all of it choreographed to force your hand, to make you expose yourself before you were ready. Why tell me this now? Because I'm dying. Dooku gestured off-screen, where sounds of battle filtered through, lightsabers clashing, force powers colliding. Sidious sent his true apprentice to eliminate me. Not Grievous, not some expendable general. His secret weapon, someone I trained, someone I trusted. Blood trickled from the corner of Dooku's mouth. The young Skywalker. Ahsoka's gasp was audible across the bridge. Anakin is Sidious's apprentice? Tony's mind raced through implications. That's impossible. He's a Jedi. He's conflicted, powerful, and desperate. To prevent loss after losing his mother to Tusken Raiders, Dooku coughed. More blood. Sidious has been grooming him for years, feeding his fears, exploiting his attachments. The data you released? It pushed Anakin toward a choice. Trust the Jedi Council who've restricted him, or trust the Chancellor who's always believed in him. And he chose Sidious. He chose what he always chooses. The people he loves over abstract principles. Dooku's image flickered as the transmission degraded. Padme Amidala carries his children. Stark. Twins. Sidious has promised Anakin the power to prevent her death in childbirth, a vision the boy has seen in nightmares. Everything my master does, every move he makes, serves the singular purpose of breaking Anakin Skywalker and reforging him into the perfect weapon. The transmission exploded with light, a lightsaber piercing through Dooku's chest from behind. The Count gasped, blood bubbling from his lips, as a figure stepped into frame. Anakin Skywalker, his eyes burning gold with Sith corruption, his face twisted with rage and grief and terrible purpose. "You were warned not to contact them," Anakin said, his voice carrying harmonics that didn't sound entirely human. "So I was." Dooku smiled despite the pain. "But I am still capable of one final act, of defiance." He looked directly at Tony. "The weapon, the station. Sidious is building it above Geonosis. Destroy it before he can use it to." Anakin's lightsaber swept through Dooku's neck. The transmission cut off, leaving Tony staring at empty air where a Sith Lord had just died trying to save the galaxy from something worse than himself. "Master Anakin killed him," Ahsoka whispered. "Killed Count Dooku." Became. She couldn't finish the sentence. "A Sith apprentice." Rex's voice was grim. "Which means Protocol 66 just became active. Every clone in the galaxy is one transmission away from executing Order 66. Tony's tactical systems screamed as Jarvis updated the threat board. Republic forces weren't just converging on Coruscant. They were repositioning around every Jedi temple, every outpost where Jedi operated, surrounding them, preparing for synchronized execution. "He's going to do it," Tony said quietly. "Sidious is going to activate the chips and wipe out the Jedi Order in a single coordinated strike. Today. Now. We have to warn them." Ahsoka was already moving toward the communication station. "They won't believe us." Tony pulled up the Senate broadcast. Palpatine was still speaking, still weaving his web of plausible lies. The council's too focused on investigating Palpatine politically. They're thinking about Senate hearings and due process. They're not thinking about military coup and genocide. Then what do we do? Tony looked at the star map, at the scattered forces under his command, 400 clones. One Padawan, one frigate with experimental arc reactor power, against 3 million clone troopers about to receive kill orders. The entire Republic Navy, and a Sith Lord who'd spent decades preparing for this exact moment. The smart move was to run, take his people, jump to the unknown regions, let the galaxy burn and rebuild from the ashes. Tony Stark had never been smart when people needed saving. "Jarvis, plot a course for Geonosis. Maximum speed." "Sir, Geonosis is deep in Separatist space, heavily defended, and according to Dooku's final words, hosts an unknown superweapon. Our chances of survival are better than the Jedi's. Chances if we don't stop whatever Sidious is building." Tony turned to Rex and Ahsoka. Dooku said Sidious is constructing a weapon, something important enough to kill his own apprentice to keep secret. Something on Geonosis, where the war started. "A space station," Ahsoka said slowly, remembering briefings. "Intelligence reported unusual construction above Geonosis months ago, but it was classified above Padawan clearance. Master Windu called it Project Stardust." Stardust. Tony's engineer mind processed the implications. Not a defensive station, not a command center. A weapon. Something with enough destructive power to. He stopped. Terrible understanding dawning. To destroy entire planets. He's building a planet killer. The bridge fell silent as the full scope of Sidious's plan crystallized. Wipe out the Jedi with Order 66. Consolidate power as Emperor. And then threaten any system that resisted. With complete annihilation from an invincible battle station. We can't fight that, Rex said flatly. Even if we could get past the orbital defenses, destroy a space station, we need a fleet. We have one ship. One ship with a Tony Stark arc, reactor, and a crew of people who've already died once. Tony's smile was sharp and dangerous. Plus, I've blown up my share of superweapons. It's kind of my thing. This is insane. Probably. Tony activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is Stark. We have new orders. We're going to Geonosis to destroy a Sith superweapon before it can be completed. This is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants out, we'll drop you at the nearest safe port. No questions, no judgment. He waited. The comm remained silent. Then one voice. A clone trooper from Rex's squad. We're with you, sir. All of us. More voices joined. A chorus of clones who'd chosen freedom over programming. Who'd survived Kamino and Skako Minor. Who'd seen their brothers murdered by the Republic they served. We didn't come this far to run, another clone said. We came to fight. Rex looked at his brothers through the bridge viewport. At 400. Soldiers ready to die for a chance. To mean something beyond their serial numbers. His hand moved in a sharp salute. The 501st stands with you, Stark. Let's go kill a battle station. Tony returned the salute, then turned to Ahsoka. This is going to get ugly. Sidious will know we're coming the moment we drop out of hyperspace. You sure you want to be part of this? The smart move was to run. Take his people, jump to the unknown regions. Let the galaxy burn and rebuild from the ashes. Tony Stark had never been smart when people needed saving. Jarvis, plot a course for Geonosis. Maximum speed. Sir, Geonosis is deep in separatist space. Heavily defended, and according to Dooku's final words, hosts an unknown superweapon. Our chances of survival are better than the Jedi's. Chances if we don't stop. Whatever Sidious is building. Tony turned to Rex and Ahsoka. Dooku said Sidious is constructing a weapon. Something important enough to kill his own apprentice to keep secret. Something on Geonosis, where the war started. A space station, Ahsoka said slowly, remembering briefings. Intelligence reported unusual construction above Geonosis months ago, but it was classified above Padawan clearance. Master Windu called it Project Stardust. Stardust. Tony's engineer mind processed the implications. Not a defensive station, not a command center. A weapon. Something with enough destructive power to. He stopped. Terrible understanding dawning. To destroy entire planets. He's building a planet killer. The bridge fell silent as the full scope of Sidious's plan crystallized. Wipe out the Jedi with Order 66. Consolidate power as Emperor. And then threaten any system that resisted. With complete annihilation from an invincible battle station. We can't fight that, Rex said flatly. Even if we could get past the orbital defenses, destroy a space station, we need a fleet. We have one ship. One ship with a Tony Stark arc, reactor, and a crew of people who've already died once. Tony's smile was sharp and dangerous. Plus, I've blown up my share of superweapons. It's kind of my thing. This is insane. Probably. Tony activated the ship-wide comm. All hands, this is Stark. We have new orders. We're going to Geonosis to destroy a Sith superweapon before it can be completed. This is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants out, we'll drop you at the nearest safe port. No questions, no judgment. He waited. The comm remained silent. Then one voice. A clone trooper from Rex's squad. We're with you, sir. All of us. More voices joined. A chorus of clones who'd chosen freedom over programming. Who'd survived Kamino and Skako Minor. Who'd seen their brothers murdered by the Republic they served. We didn't come this far to run, another clone said. We came to fight. Rex looked at his brothers through the bridge viewport. At 400. Soldiers ready to die for a chance. To mean something beyond their serial numbers. His hand moved in a sharp salute. The 501st stands with you, Stark. Let's go kill a battle station. Tony returned the salute, then turned to Ahsoka. This is going to get ugly. Sidious will know we're coming the moment we drop out of hyperspace. You sure you want to be part of this? Ahsoka ignited her lightsabers, green and yellow blades casting her face in sharp relief. Master Anakin made his choice. Now I'm making mine. Her eyes hardened with determination that would have made any Jedi Master proud. Let's go save the galaxy. The steadfast engines flared to life. burning brighter than they had any right to with Tony's arc reactor modifications. The ship leapt into hyperspace, carrying 400 soldiers and one engineer toward a battle that would determine whether the galaxy lived free or died in chains. Behind them, on Coruscant, Chancellor Palpatine smiled in his office and gave the order that would echo through history. Execute Order 66. Across the galaxy, biochips activated. Clone troopers turned on their Jedi commanders, and the sound of lightsabers being extinguished was drowned out by blaster fire. But Tony Stark wasn't there to hear it. He was already racing toward the one weapon that could end the war before Sidious's empire began. The question was whether he'd arrive in time to destroy it, or whether he'd be destroyed trying. Geonosis burned beneath them. The desert planet's rings glowed with reflected firelight from 1,000 forges, working day and night, feeding materials into the skeletal framework suspended in high orbit. The Death Star, for that's what the Geonosians called it in their clicking language, a name that translated to ultimate weapon or final death, hung incomplete but already menacing. A sphere 400 kilometers in diameter, bristling with weapons emplacements, and crowned by a super laser focusing dish that could crack continents. Tony's sensors painted the tactical situation in unforgiving detail. 300 separatist warships surrounding the construction site, plus automated defense platforms, fighter screens, and enough firepower to reduce a fleet to atoms. The Steadfast dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge, and every weapon in the sector immediately locked onto their signature. So much for the element of surprise, Tony muttered, watching targeting solutions cascade across his HUD. Sir, we're being hailed. Multiple sources. Jarvis's tone carried a note of concern. Separatist command frequency, encrypted Republic channels, and one transmission from the Death Star itself. Put it through. The hologram that materialized wasn't Sidious or some Separatist commander. It was Anakin Skywalker, or what remained of him. The young Jedi's eyes still burned with that terrible golden light. But his expression had shifted from rage to something worse, certainty. Stark, I was told you'd come. Anakin's voice carried the mechanical edge of someone who'd screamed too much, broken something inside that couldn't heal. The Emperor predicted it. Said you'd try to play hero one last time. Emperor. Ahsoka's voice cracked. Master, what have you done? What was necessary? Anakin's gaze found his former Padawan, and for a moment something human flickered in those corrupted eyes. The Jedi Order is gone, Ahsoka, ended by the clones they trusted. The Republic has been reorganized into the First Galactic Empire. Chancellor, Emperor, Palpatine has brought order to the galaxy. He raised his mechanical hand, the one Tony recognized from intelligence files about Anakin's duel with Dooku years ago. Join us, both of you. You've seen the Republic's corruption. You know the system was broken. The Empire can fix it by building a weapon that can destroy planets. Tony gestured toward the Death Star. That's your idea of order? Fear so absolute that entire worlds can be erased on a whim. Peace through power. The strong protecting the weak. No more endless debate. No more Senate paralysis. No more. No more freedom. Ahsoka's lightsabers ignited. Master, I know you. I know you're scared. I know you're trying to protect Senator Amidala. But this isn't the way. Palpatine is using you. Palpatine saved me. Anakin's control shattered, raw emotion bleeding through. The Jedi Council wanted me to spy on the Chancellor. Wanted me to betray the one person who believed in me. They held me back, denied me the rank of Master. Told me my attachments made me weak. His fist clenched. Now I have power beyond anything they could imagine. Power to save Padme. Power to bring order to chaos. Power to murder children? The new voice cut across Anakin's rant like a blade. Obi-Wan Kenobi's hologram flickered to life beside Anakin's, and the Jedi Master's expression carried the weight of absolute betrayal. I saw the temple security recordings, Anakin. I saw what you did to the younglings who trusted you. Tell me how that brings order. Tell me how that saves anyone. Anakin's face twisted. You don't understand. I understand that my brother, my student, my friend has become the very thing we swore to destroy. Obi-Wan's voice broke despite his control. And I understand that I failed you. Failed to see the darkness growing. Failed to help you before it was too late. You can still help him, Tony interrupted. Tactical mind working through the subtext. Kenobi, Where are you transmitting from? The Jedi Temple, or what remains of it? Obi-Wan's hologram shifted, revealing the burning corridors behind him. Most of the Order is dead, killed by the clones they commanded, by the soldiers they trusted. I survived because I was off-world when Order 66 activated. Master Yoda survived by being Yoda. His attention fixed on. Tony, we intercepted your transmission about Geonosis. About the weapon. If Palpatine completes that station, any hope of resistance dies with the first planet he destroys. Which is why we're here to blow it up. Tony pulled up. Schematics his sensors had compiled. The station's incomplete, structural weaknesses in the northern hemisphere. Power systems still under construction. Main reactor not yet online. Hit it hard enough, fast enough, and the whole thing collapses like a house of cards. A house of cards defended by 300 warships. Rex examined the tactical display. We'd need a miracle to reach the station, let alone destroy it. Or a distraction. Obi-Wan's hologram gestured off-screen. I have access to what remains of the Republic, now Imperial, fleet. Ships whose clone crews haven't fully accepted their new orders. If I can coordinate a simultaneous assault on Geonosis, draw off the Separatist defenders, you'd be leading your own soldiers to slaughter. Anakin cut in. The clones follow Order 66. They'll hunt you down the moment you give them the chance. Then I'll give them a better target. Obi-Wan's smile was sad and resigned. Besides, some of us still believe in sacrificing for a greater good. You remember sacrifice, don't you, Anakin? Before you decided power mattered more than principles. The two Jedi stared at each other across the holographic void, master and student. Brothers who'd fought together for years, now separated by choices that couldn't be unmade. Don't do this, Obi-Wan, Anakin said quietly. Surrender. Accept the Empire. You can still have a place in the New Order. The only place I'll accept is the one where I stop you from completing that abomination. Obi-Wan's hologram turned to Tony. Stark, you have 1 hour. I'll bring every ship I can muster and hit the Separatist fleet from the western approach. When you see the opening, take it. Wait, but Obi-Wan's transmission cut off, leaving Tony staring at Anakin's hologram. He's going to die, Anakin said flatly, and his death will be your fault. No. Ahsoka stepped forward, her voice carrying the strength of someone who'd found her convictions in fire. His death will be because you chose to serve a monster instead of trusting the people who loved you. Master Obi-Wan is doing what Jedi do, protecting the galaxy from tyranny. You're doing what Sith do, justifying atrocity with promises of order. Then you've chosen your side. Anakin's expression went cold. When you reach the Death Star, you'll find I've prepared a welcome appropriate for traitors. Lord Vader does not show mercy. Vader. Ahsoka's voice was barely a whisper. Anakin Skywalker is dead. I destroyed him, just as I'll destroy anyone who threatens the Empire. The hologram shifted, revealing the incomplete armor being constructed around Anakin, black plates, breathing apparatus, the shell that would turn a broken Jedi into Darth Vader. 1 hour. Stark. Then the station's defenses activate fully, and nothing you have will be enough to penetrate them. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of engines and the distant rumble of Geonosis's industrial heartbeat. Tony looked at his ragtag crew, clone deserters, one traumatized Padawan, and an engineer from another universe piloting technology that barely worked. Jarvis, honest assessment. Can we do this? Sir, the probability of successfully destroying the Death Star is approximately 3,720 to 1. Never tell me the odds. Tony smiled despite everything. Rex, prep your men for boarding action. We're going inside that station and finding the reactor core. Ahsoka, you're with me. We'll need a Jedi to handle whatever Vader's prepared. And if we fail? Rex asked. Then Obi-Wan's sacrifice buys time for someone else to stop Sidious. But we're not going to fail. Tony's arc reactor pulsed brighter. I've been building toward this moment since the day I crashed into this galaxy. Time to see if all that preparation was worth it. 57 minutes later, Obi-Wan Kenobi's fleet emerged from hyperspace. 38 Republic Star Destroyers, now Imperial, their crews struggling with conflicting loyalties, dove toward the Separatist defensive perimeter. Clone troopers fired on droids they'd fought beside for years, destroying the ships that had once been their allies. In a war that had always been a lie, the Separatist fleet reacted with mechanical efficiency, redirecting firepower toward the new threat. 300 ships against 38. The math was brutally simple. Obi-Wan's flagship died first, turbolasers carving through its shields and detonating the reactor core in a bloom of nuclear fire. But the Jedi Master had already evacuated, his shuttle racing toward the Death Star's construction site with a squad of loyal clone commandos who'd removed their inhibitor chips before. Order 66 activated. For the Republic that should have been. Obi-Wan's voice echoed across all frequencies as his fleet burned. For the Jedi who died trusting brothers in arms. For the galaxy we're fighting to save. Tony used the chaos. The steadfast accelerated past the distracted Separatist picket, repulsors screaming. As modified arc reactor power pushed the frigate beyond design specifications, droid fighters peeled off to intercept, but Rex's gunners were ready. Precision fire that would have made any Jedi pilot proud. They reached the Death Star's incomplete hull, dove through a construction gap, and Tony felt the station's artificial gravity take hold. The Steadfast crashed through half-built corridors, emergency bulkheads, and scaffolding that groaned under unexpected stress. Hull breach in sections 3 through 7. Jarvis reported. Life support failing. We need to abandon ship. Everyone out. Move. Tony was already launching from the cargo bay, repulsors carrying him deeper into the station's skeletal interior. Behind him, 400 clones deployed with military precision, securing landing zones and establishing defensive perimeters. Ahsoka ran beside him, lightsabers illuminating corridors that had never known life. The reactor should be at the station's core, another 40 kilometers down. Then we run fast. Tony's sensors mapped their route, highlighting structural weaknesses and optimal paths. Jarvis. Time to full defensive activation. 11 minutes, sir. They ran through nightmares of unfinished construction, catwalks over infinite drops, chambers large enough to swallow cities, the skeletal framework of a weapon designed to terrorize a galaxy. Clone troopers fell to automated defenses, to droid ambushes, to the station's own architecture turning lethal. But they kept moving, because stopping meant death and death meant Sidious won. They reached the reactor chamber with 3 minutes to spare. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a massive sphere of contained energy, fusion reactions that could power continents channeled into weapons systems not yet complete. Geonosian engineers fled at their approach, clicking in panic as battle droids moved to intercept. Tony's repulsors cleared the first wave. Ahsoka's lightsabers carved through the second. Rex and his clones established a perimeter, buying precious seconds. Jarvis, analysis. How do we destroy this thing? The reactor is still incomplete, sir. The magnetic containment is. A lightsaber ignited behind them, crimson blade casting bloody light across polished metal. Darth Vader stood in the reactor chamber's entrance, his armor gleaming, his breathing apparatus hissing with mechanical rhythm. But the armor wasn't complete. Pieces still missing, exposed circuitry visible where black plates should cover vulnerable flesh. Ahsoka. Vader's voice was Anakin's filtered through machine horror. You came. I had hoped you would see reason and run. I came to stop you. Ahsoka raised her lightsabers, green and yellow light against corrupted red. Whatever you've become, Master, I won't let you help Palpatine enslave the galaxy. Then you'll die. Vader moved with speed that betrayed his mechanical augmentation, lightsaber a blur of killing strikes. Ahsoka met him head-on, their blades colliding with force that cracked the durasteel floor. Master and apprentice, separated by ideology and choice, fighting with the desperate ferocity of people who'd loved each other once. Tony used the opening. His repulsors fired precision strikes at the reactor's magnetic containment, targeting the weak points Jarvis highlighted. Each hit destabilized the fusion reaction a little more, building toward critical mass. Rex set charges on the structural supports. We're bringing this whole section down. On it, Rex and his men worked with practiced efficiency, placing thermal detonators and ion mines that would compromise the reactor's foundation. Vader noticed. His force powers lashed out, throwing Rex backward with crushing telekinetic pressure. The clone captain hit a wall hard enough to crack armor, sliding down unconscious. You'll accomplish nothing. Vader roared. pressing Ahsoka harder, his rage feeding his power. The Death Star will be completed. The Empire will rule. And everyone who resists will burn. Not today. Tony charged his Unibeam, his arc reactor straining to provide power while maintaining repulsor flight. Jarvis, maximum output. One shot. Everything we have. Sir, that will drain the arc reactor to critical levels. You'll have approximately 30 seconds of power remaining. 30 seconds is all I need. The Unibeam fired, a column of coherent energy that could have punched through a star destroyer's shields. It struck the reactor's containment field at the exact moment. Rex's charges detonated. The magnetic bottle holding the fusion reaction collapsed. For one perfect moment, Tony witnessed the birth of a star in miniature. Then physics took over. The reactor went critical, energy expanding outward in a shockwave that vaporized everything in its path. Tony grabbed Ahsoka mid-duel, repulsors straining to carry both of them away from the expanding destruction. Behind them, Vader was caught in the blast, his incomplete armor failing. Under temperatures that exceeded plasma welding torches, the Sith Lord's scream was mechanical and agonized, cutting off as the explosion consumed him. Tony flew through collapsing corridors, his power reserves dropping 20%, 15, 10. The Death Star shook itself apart around them, structural integrity failing as the reactor's destruction cascaded through interconnected systems. Jarvis, tell me there's a ship. Any ship. Obi-Wan's shuttle, sir. Docking Bay 7 Alpha. 400 meters northeast. They emerged into the bay as the station's skeleton tore itself apart. Obi-Wan stood at the shuttle's ramp, bloodied and battered, waving them aboard. Clone troopers who'd survived the mission scrambled up the loading ramp, carrying wounded brothers. Tony's arc reactor hit 3% as they reached the shuttle. His repulsors died, sending him and Ahsoka tumbling across the deck. The shuttle launched immediately, engines screaming as they raced through the Death Star's death throes. Behind them, the incomplete superweapon collapsed into itself. 400 kilometers of weapons platform, becoming an expanding debris field that would poison Geonosis's orbit for decades. The Separatist fleet scattered, leaderless and confused. The remains of Obi-Wan's attack force jumped to hyperspace, carrying survivors toward uncertain futures. And in the shuttle's passenger bay, Tony Stark lay with a dying arc reactor, watching through the viewport as the galaxy's nightmares turned to ash. Did we win? He asked no one in particular. Obi-Wan knelt beside him, examining the arc reactor with Jedi intuition. The Death Star is destroyed. Order 66 has been exposed. Palpatine's empire faces resistance it didn't anticipate. He smiled sadly. Whether that constitutes victory, history will decide. Not good enough. Tony forced himself upright despite Jarvis's warnings. Sidious is still out there. Still Emperor. Still has 3 million clone troopers and the entire Republic military infrastructure. But not the Death Star, Ahsoka said quietly. She held her lightsabers loose, staring at the place Vader had fallen. And not Master Anakin. I felt him die in the explosion. The darkness was cut off. Tony thought of sacrifice, of heroes who'd given everything to buy time for others to fight on. Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, now Anakin Skywalker, redeemed, at the last moment by destruction that prevented his complete transformation into Vader. Then we make his death mean something, Tony said. We take what's left of the Republic forces who still believe in freedom. We remove the inhibitor chips from every clone we can reach. We build a resistance that Sidious can't crush with fear and superweapons. A rebel alliance, Rex said from across the bay, his voice weak but determined. One that fights for what the Republic should have been. Catchy name. Tony's arc reactor flickered to 1%. We'll workshop it. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying the last free fighters toward destinations unknown. Behind them, the galaxy convulsed under the birth of Empire. Ahead, uncertain futures waited to be written. But in that moment, exhausted, damaged, having lost brothers and mentors and innocence, they were alive, free, and still fighting. The galaxy far, far away had changed forever, and Tony Stark, the man from beyond the stars, had changed with it. The galaxy would remember this day as the Battle of Geonosis, the moment when the Empire's ultimate weapon died before completion. When Darth Vader fell before he could fully rise. When the Clone Wars ended not with Palpatine's total victory, but with the spark of resistance that would burn for decades. Tony Stark would remember it differently, as the day he chose this galaxy over his own, as the day he became more than an outsider with advanced technology. He became a symbol, a rallying point for those who refused to accept tyranny disguised as order. The months that followed were chaos. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda established a hidden Jedi sanctuary on Dagobah, training Force sensitives who'd escaped. Order 66. Rex led surgical strikes against Imperial cloning facilities, liberating his brothers and removing inhibitor chips before they could be activated. Ahsoka Tano coordinated resistance cells across the Outer Rim, building networks that would eventually become the Rebel Alliance. And Tony? He did what he'd always done best. He built new armor incorporating lightsaber-resistant alloys, ships powered by arc reactor technology that could outrun Imperial Star Destroyers, weapons that leveled the playing field between ragtag rebels and an empire that controlled the galaxy's industrial might. Emperor Palpatine ruled from Coruscant, his face broadcast across trillions of screens, promising peace through strength. But his promises rang hollow to those who'd seen the evidence of conspiracy, who'd witnessed the Republic's transformation into dictatorship, who'd lost friends and family to Order 66. The Empire had won the Clone Wars. But the war for the galaxy's soul had only just begun. Tony stood on the bridge of his new flagship, a heavily modified cruiser christened Arclight, watching hyperspace streaks paint the viewport in cascading light. Beside him, Ahsoka studied tactical displays showing Imperial fleet movements. Rex coordinated with clone commanders across secure channels. And Jarvis, upgraded with Separatist AI technology, monitored communications across 1,000 worlds. Incoming transmission, Jarvis announced. Origin Alderaan. Senator Organa requests your presence for a meeting of resistance leaders. Tell him we're en route. Tony pulled up the star map, watching red Imperial markers spread like cancer across familiar systems. How many cells do we have operational? 47 confirmed. Another 112 unconfirmed but probable. Total fighting force, approximately 50,000 soldiers. 15 capital ships. 300 fighters. Rex's voice carried grim satisfaction. Not enough to win a war, but enough to be a problem. Good. I like being a problem. Tony's arc reactor, now the Mark 45 model, refined through months of work, pulsed steadily. Sidious wanted order. Let's show him what chaos looks like when people fight back. Ahsoka smiled, the expression carrying echoes of the confident Padawan she'd been before the galaxy. Taught her hard lessons about trust and betrayal. Master Anakin used to say that. About being chaos agents disrupting separatist plans. Smart man. Terrible life choices. But smart. Tony looked at the young woman, who'd become one of his closest allies. Think he'd be proud of what we're building? I think he'd be terrified. Ahsoka's smile turned sad, which means we're probably doing it right. The arc light dropped from hyperspace above Alderaan, a jewel of a planet, blue and green and untouched by war's devastation. For now, Tony knew Palpatine's empire would eventually come for worlds like this, crushing resistance until only fear remained. But that was a fight for another day. Today, they'd won. They'd destroyed the Death Star before it could become operational. They'd exposed Order 66 and saved thousands of clones from becoming unwitting murderers. They'd proven that Sidious wasn't invincible, that the Empire could bleed. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it was a start. Jarvis, begin recording. I want this transmitted to every resistance cell, every freed clone, everyone who's still fighting. Recording, sir. Tony faced the camera, his arc reactor casting blue light across features hardened by months of war. This is Tony Stark to all allied forces. Today we struck a blow against tyranny. Tomorrow, the Empire will strike back. They have numbers, resources, and a Sith Lord who's spent decades preparing for this exact scenario. He paused, letting the weight of reality settle. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and facing odds that would make any sane person surrender. Good thing none of us are sane. We're rebels, freedom fighters, survivors who've already died once and came back meaner. The Empire thinks fear will break us. Let's show them what we're really made of. Stark out. The message transmitted across secure channels, carrying hope to scattered resistance cells across the galaxy. It wasn't much, but in a galaxy ruled by fear, hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. "May the Force be with you," Ahsoka said quietly, speaking the traditional Jedi blessing. Tony smiled, his arc reactor pulsing in rhythm with his heart. "And also with you, kid. And also with you." The arc light descended toward Alderaan, carrying three heroes who'd changed the galaxy's fate: an engineer from beyond the stars, a Padawan who'd found her own path, and a clone captain who'd chosen freedom over programming. Behind them, the Empire consolidated power. Ahead, uncertain futures waited to be written. But in that moment, racing toward allies and hope in the next battle in an endless war, they were exactly where they needed to be, fighting together, unbroken. The Clone Wars had ended. The Galactic Civil War had begun. And Tony Stark, the man in the iron armor, who'd crashed into this galaxy and refused to leave it broken, would fight until every being could live free, or until his arc reactor finally dimmed. For the last time, he'd faced gods and monsters in his own universe. This galaxy's tyrants would learn they were no different. And legends, forged in fire, tested by loss, tempered by sacrifice, would remember the day when a hero from beyond the stars stood against an empire and declared, "Not today, not ever, not while I still have power to fight."